Hello everyone, Jak Syn here on behalf of Fiend.com and Future Daze, and today we're sitting with Casey and Kayla of Alpha Quadrant. How you guys doing today?
Very good. Very, very good.
That is so great to hear. I know with everything going on right now, it's good to see that you guys are in good spirits.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're washing our hands, we're being safe, we're trying to look on the positive side of things for sure. So there's already so much negative out there.
That is very true. As long as we wash our hands and we make sure not to touch our face like we're doing right now, I think we'll be okay.
Spend over 4 hours sanitizing every piece of gear that we take live.
Oh my gosh, yes, that too.
Yeah, I had to do that before we did our last, we did a festival in West Palm Beach. That was one of the requirements. You had to sanitize everything, so.
Yeah, we're still being very safe.
Yeah.
Which is really good and very responsible of you guys. You know that, because like with everything going on, all it takes is a little touch here, a little cough there, and before you know it, you're like, biohazard.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I know, like, you know, because I'm still going into work, essential retailer, and I'm telling you, we have to do everything. We have to wear the mask, wear the gloves. I have to, when I'm done with work, I have to come home and take everything off, wash it all off, and get it all ready for the next day. So it's definitely a change to regular life, I'll tell you that.
Me too. I'm also an essential retail worker, so I completely get it. That's why I'm washing my hands, wear a mask every day. Like, I already know the routine. You know it, so it's like second nature by this point.
Right, so everybody out there, if you haven't been doing that and you haven't been sanitizing everything you got to sanitize, be sure to do that because it is extremely important. So today we're going to ask you guys a couple of questions and see where it goes from here. You guys ready to do it?
I think so. We're ready?
Sounds like you guys are ready. What are your top 3 moments performing live?
I can think of one because it was very, very memorable. We had performed with the Cruise Shadows in Jacksonville last year. And unfortunately, we had technical issues. Casey moonlights as a robot on our live shows, so we use a vocoder, and the vocoder wasn't triggering at that moment in time, so we had to kind of stop the show. But the funny part about that one track, I mean, we got it working, so it was fine in the end. But what I got everyone to do in the crowd was to clap like Tinkerbell. I was like, oh my gosh, he lost his voice. You have to clap to believe. And sure enough, like, everyone started clapping. And by the time, like, it got to the crescendo of them clapping, like, the technical issues were fixed. And it was, like, the most magical moment ever. So, you know, it's live music. You have to always, like, roll with the punches and just.
Stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff happens. And we always try to have fun with it. So that was super memorable just because, like, I really like crowd interaction and engagement. So for me, like, having everybody, like, instead of sitting there bored like, oh man, technical issues, like, we actually got it to be entertaining, I think, for everybody. So
yes, the ham was strong that night.
yes, oh yes, I'm a huge ham on stage if I need to be. Yeah, what's another one?
Well, that same weekend we had the USB cable popped out of the back of our sound card mid-show.
Yeah,
and
definitely memorable.
From all the low
memorable moments,
yeah,
not necessarily top moments, but for sure memorable.
Because of so much low end in our music, and
it's too much bass. They weren't ready.
Too much junk in the
there
trunk.
Was too much junk in the trunk, and it just fell all the way out. Like,
and I got it popped back in, and she ended up just continuing the song.
Yes.
Acapella. With no music behind it, and I popped it back in, and it came on right.
What a learning experience that weekend was, man. Definitely a crash course in
that never happened
live
before.
Performance. No, it was literally, we were on point, and then that one weekend was like, hey man, think on your feet, and sure enough we did. Yeah, and then the third one.
The NAMM Show was fun too.
Oh my gosh, that's a memorable one. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a convention that happens every year in January in California. It's called the NAMM Show, but it's a
it's in Anaheim.
Yeah, Anaheim. It's a National Association of Music Merchants, and we had the opportunity to perform there live on behalf of MOK and Wave Razor, performing a track that we did for them using their software synth. We did one whole track only using Wave Razor, which was crazy. Like, not that many people use one software synth to create a whole track. A lot of times people use pieces from here and pieces from there. And this one we were able to perform live, and it was like so fantastic because we found out that they got
a noise complaint
because of our because of us performing.
Yeah, we were too
Oh
loud.
my God, we're like super rebels. I wish we could have something really like Disney like to share, but like all of our stuff is like
Disaster.
yeah, slightly chaotic, but it's fun for us either way. I mean, everyone always has a blast, and we're always positive about it. So love it.
We've had fun playing with certain acts too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, besides the Crew Shadows,
Yeah.
there's been Betamax.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, everything around these shows has been
Yeah.
really cool. Street Cleaner and Protector 101.
Yes.
That was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
And we shared housing with all three acts
Mhm.
when we would do this. So the real shenanigans happened outside of the show.
Yeah, outside, but still very memorable.
You know, it's not a show unless something goes wrong, right? That's always the case. You know, it's like you think, oh, tonight's gonna be a great show. I'm gonna have a great time. You know, everything's gonna go great, and you go, I just know something's gonna go wrong, so I'm gonna prepare for that. And it's always that funny thing where we always try to prepare for the worst, but then when it actually happens, you go, what happened? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna fix this? But that's the learning experience. That is just the way it is for all artists. You know, it's not a show unless something goes wrong. And there's some great acts that you guys have played with. Like you were saying, like most of the memorable stuff happens after the show. I kind of know what it's like to be in a room with Street Cleaner and Protector 101, but you know what I mean. I'm sure you guys had some great times there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the camaraderie is like the best part I think about gigging is the fact that you get to connect with fellow artists and like get their thoughts, get their process, like kind of see how they see their own music because everyone receives music differently. So what I write about might not be what you hear. And it's very interesting, especially like with artists, people who write lyrics, maybe you had different imagery than they did when they wrote it, or maybe there's a different trick that they use that you can use on your set, like as well going forward, or just any new software or anything. Like it's always great to be connected with people like that. Just always, you know, one helps the other, and it's always beneficial.
This is very true. It's always great, like when you're able to be in a room with other artists and get their different ideas and how they work and what makes them tick. It's always really great because it's this big melting pot of just information from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus the hookers and the blow and
yeah, right.
you know.
Bro, let me tell you about how chill we are. I think I drink about 2 beers at every gig, and that's it. Like that's it. And then after that, we break down, and we're so tired between like setup. Like I don't know if everybody knows this, but when you perform, you're at the venue hours before the doors roll. So like if the doors are at 9, you're there at like 6, sometimes 5, depending on how many people are there. So you're literally there setting up, waiting, setting up, and then you have to go run for food, run to change, and then come right back and then wait for your set and wait for your set and wait for your set. Then you perform, and then you have to break down after the set. So we're literally there for the longest amount of time, which is great. It's fine, but I don't think everybody understands exactly how long the process is when you perform live, unless you're an artist, of course.
That is very true. It is a very long time, and at the end of it all, you kind of go like, everybody's like, yeah, man, where's the after party? You're like, man, the after party's at my house. I gotta go get some food, and I gotta knock out. I gotta do something tomorrow too. What would you say is your favorite album / EP that you've worked on?
Honestly, it's the one that we're working on now. So the first EP that we had out was self-titled. It's just called Alpha Quadrant. It's a big square picture of me and Casey just chilling. But that one was fun to work on because at that moment in time we were trying to I guess establish our sound. Like I was new to working just in the synthwave genre or just music recording in general. Like I was brand new to it. Casey's been involved for years. So for us to try to get like to the middle where there was that kind of partnership in regards to sound took a minute. And you could kind of hear that in the first EP because it's very faceted. Like I wouldn't say that it has one cohesive sound. There's lots of different things for different people, and that's great. Synthwave is such a huge genre. Like it covers so many things. There's so many different tones in it. that it was interesting to hear our first EP and then hear the one that we're working on now. Like, I feel like the one that we're working on now is a little bit more cohesive. Casey and I both have, I guess, a darker background when it comes to music. Like, well, you do lots of different things, but I'm so used to like the new wave goth scene. So like, I didn't really understand where synthwave fit in there, because I think everybody thinks synthwave is just like that Miami Vice neon colors, pink, blue, like, or pink, orange, like.
For some it is though.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, but there's also other avenues that you could take synthwave because of the sounds that you can create with a synth. So I just like it because it's my old stomping ground. So it's a little bit darker. It's a little bit more rhythmic.
To add to that, it's also boring to just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and rehash it. It's, you know, over the years I've heard acts that do that. They pretty much re-release the same album over and over and over and just call the songs different titles and title the album something else. And you kind of get stuck in this cycle and nothing ever progresses, nothing ever evolves, nothing ever changes. And I know that there are some people, and this is in every genre of music, that don't want the artist to change. They want them to keep re-releasing. Like, I'll use Depeche Mode as an example. There's people in the fan base that just want them to release Violator over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's like having macaroni and cheese every single day of the week for every meal.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life.
And it's a synth. Like, there's so many different sounds that could come out of it. I think it's silly to kind of just box yourself into one sound. So the EP we're working on now, although it might be a little dark presently, like, who's to say what the next album might sound like? You know, we might get inspired by something different.
Yeah, and this one, even this one, kind of bounces around a little bit. It's not just one set thing. Plus, it's art. Do what you want. You know, are there any rules really? No.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Have fun. That's the only rule.
And challenge yourself.
Yes.
Challenge yourself. Learn something new.
Yeah.
You never know.
This is very true. I mean, as an artist, I think as an artist, you have a responsibility to, well, to your fans, but also to yourself. You know, the responsibility is to constantly build on your sound, to constantly take your sound in different directions. Because, you know, like you're saying, from one album to the next, you know, one period in your life, you're going to feel really down in the dumps. You're going to feel like, you know, something's not going right. So you're going to write about that. Another part in your life, you're going to write about how great things are. You know, the thing that inspires you the most. Those are the things you're going to write about. So things are constantly changing, constantly evolving. And in the synthwave scene, you know, like you guys are talking about earlier, in the synthwave scene, it's like, yes, it's a broad spectrum. I always like to think of it as a giant rainbow. You know,
Yeah.
on one side, so we have two sides here. One side, you have your, you know, your retro wavy, like palm trees, neon lights, you know, sunsets, fast cars, you know, endless summer stuff, you know. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have your dark future. You have your cyberpunk culture, your pentagrams, your Satanist, you know, your deep darkest like desire things, you know what I mean? That sexy part there. So, and all of that kind of just everything that you create in between that falls all within that area. So, like you were saying, like your synthesizers has all these different sounds and all these things you can do with it. So I think you're right. If artists don't take chances and artists don't progress in certain ways and write about different things and challenge themselves, then they're not really unlocking their full potential in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And why spend so much money on a synth and only use a certain amount of sounds?
This is very true.
Yeah, bad boy. Just throw them in there.
Yeah. That's part of the
You're
fun.
right.
Is making new sounds and seeing what comes out of it, because you never know what's going to happen when you turn that knob, press that button, or move that slider.
Yep.
Yeah, you go, ooh, that sounds really good. I'm going to use that. What was the drive behind getting you into making music and performing live?
So my background is actually like dance, musical, theater kind of background. Like
Hence the ham.
Yeah, hence the ham. So like I would I'd perform in high school and like do musicals, like Hairspray in Chicago, like I live for. Like I'm a huge theater nerd. So I've always been interested and been bred to entertain. Like I even danced before that. So being on stage is not anything new to me. I've always known how to entertain. Not stage shy whatsoever, but in regards to getting involved into music and this band in particular, one of my friends, Michael from A Starry Night, asked me if I could sing. And I was like, yeah, I could sing. And so he was like, oh, could you sing Glycerin? And I was like, sure. But at the time, I didn't have his phone number or anything like that. Like I couldn't get a hold of him. So I just posted it on Facebook because for me, it was just something fun and something new. I was like, why the hell not? Like, I'll just go ahead and do it. And I posted it up, and it was very, I don't want to use the word therapeutic, but it was, I guess, rewarding for me. Like, I enjoyed it. It was something that I got back in touch with that I forgot that I had. And because I posted that video, Casey actually saw it. And at the time, I guess, was kind of contemplating a new musical project. And he wanted a female singer in the project. So he reached out to me, and that's kind of how everything started with me. My explanation is super short, but Casey will just tell you all about his background.
It all started when I was about 2 years
Oh
old.
my God, here we go.
No, I did get a young start with this. I was just entering my teens when I started making music with these things surrounding us. And back then, this was the early 90s. I'm a little older than I look. Back then, things were done quite differently. Mm-hmm. But while a lot of my classmates, because I didn't really have what you'd call a social circle in school back then, or even in high school for that matter, they were either getting really into video game consoles or RPGs, IRC type stuff. Mm-hmm. That was what people I did know were getting into, that, or they were trying to perfect their Pearl Jam and Green Day sound-alike band.
Oh yeah.
So not that there's anything wrong with that, because grunge was like the thing back then. But I was more interested in what these things could do, and drum machines and computer-based sequencers and hardware sequencers. I use all that stuff. So hardware samplers, in fact, one of them is sitting in my living room right now. It's massive.
It is pretty big.
It's going to be for sale after a little bit of refurbishment too. So in case anybody's interested in an Emulator 2 Plus, keep your eye out for that, because it's
coming.
Yeah, it's out
slowly.
Slowly. The thing is massive. But anyhow, that was my first sampler. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple drum machines, including a TR-606, an R8 from Roland, and a JD-800, which I still have. That's in storage and needs restoration too. No,
Casey's a gearhead, if you guys couldn't tell.
I had all this stuff, and not many people in my age bracket or where I grew up were really that interested in this kind of thing. So fast forward to college, I went to recording arts school, and I worked on music in a studio that was also a synthesizer museum. The place was amazing, and it had, this guy who owned it had at least one of everything, if not more. So if you're into synths, it was heaven. And oddly enough, the guy that we bought this one from was the engineer that I worked with there, and I learned a lot of stuff from him. Then I ended up sharing a studio with some friends, and together we had like 50 synths, I think 15 drum machines, Lord. 2 samplers, and a huge 56-channel board in this basement. I'm from a kind of not a small area, but a medium-sized city in northeastern Wisconsin. So like this was unheard of in this area, and we had all this stuff, and made a couple progressive house records with those guys, actual on vinyl releases and dub plates and all that stuff. So that was kind of fun. Then we parted ways, and I started building up my own rig. and eventually invested a lot of money and just kind of added to it over the years. And I worked for a record label in Miami for a little while. That's how that ended, is kind of a story all its own, but let's just say the FBI was...
It's Miami. That's typical. Like, if you guys need, if anything happens in Miami, FBI is called. You know, you cross the street the wrong way, the FBI is there. You know, if you try to return some fabuloso, the FBI is there. Like, it's just really.
It was a front. It was a front. I'll just say that.
If you try to front, the FBI is there.
Yes, and in this case, yeah, that's what ended up happening. But it was a pretty seedy. I didn't know any of this until after all of it. So went from that just to doing independent production work for a long time, then fell into sound design. But before that, I started making trance with a buddy in Norway. Oh, and I'm skipping a huge step. I got very involved with the EBM industrial scene for a very long time, and to a degree, I'd say I still am. And started playing keyboards in 2008, live keys for a band called Cyanide Regime, and then I also went on to work with another act called Comor Commando with one of the guys from Iconic Coil, Sebastian Comor. He and I had a falling out, and we haven't really ever picked it back up. Unfortunate, but it does happen. And I wish him all the best. He's still a good person. I have nothing against him. It just didn't work out for us, and it's too bad. But through that and Cyanide Regime, and also I've worked with bands like Assemblage 23, which is the tour I was on when I saw her videos on Facebook of her singing. And that's what kind of led me to ask her, and I'll get to that now. 2016, I was on tour with Assemblage 23, and that was personally kind of a rough time in my life. I was dealing with fallout from a breakup while I was on this tour, and I was glad that I was out. I was glad that I was gone, because it just gave me something else to think about. But while on tour, the drummer for Assemblage 23 has a band called Alter de Ruin. Are you familiar with Alter de Ruin, Jack?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
So Mike was like, "Hey, Casey, do you want to do a remix of one of the tracks off the last album?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I asked him for the stems to Tiny Wars and Quiet Storms, and his wife sent them while I got them when we were just leaving Louisiana.
Oh.
Louisiana. And I started work on this remix, and it didn't really sound like anything else I'd ever done, and I didn't want to go under any of my other names for it, because it didn't sound like industrial, it didn't sound like trance. And I've always listened to new retro wave stuff since, and even stuff that was what new retro wave eventually evolved into. I know that there are probably purists that are going to watch this that are going to want to correct me, but a buddy of mine in the UK is a drum and bass producer, coined the term electro step back in 2007, and he has an album called that, and it predates when new retro wave officially, like when that genre and synthwave officially started, which is pretty interesting because he did it to a drum and bass tempo, 174 beats per minute. But his stuff is really cool, and so that brought me to it. And I've also been a huge Italo disco fan for as long as I can remember, and that stuff predates anything synthwave. So I've always been into those sounds, and so I used some of that. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I throw some retro-ish sounds in there? Let's throw some Simmons drums, and let's throw some modern stuff from Serum in there, and let's throw in some old school sounding synths. So I did that, and as this remix evolved, it kind of led me to think, well, you know, I'd really like to do my own thing. Trance is really cool and it's fun, because I was doing that with my friend Bjorn he lives over in Norway, and he has a project. If you haven't checked it out, I'm going to make a little plug on my buddy's project. It's Centurion Prime. That stuff is off the chain awesome, and if you haven't checked it out, please do, because it's rad. So that stuff is cool, but believe it or not, it might surprise you, there really isn't a whole lot of money in it, because, you know, unless you're somebody like Armin van Buuren or Paul Oakenfold or any of these really big names, you're not really going to see much money from it. And I was like, you know what, I just want to start my own thing. And initially this was just going to be me, and I'm like, you know what, that's going to be really boring because I'm not really good at writing lyrics, and I don't possess that ability to play a keyboard and vocalize at the same time. It's just, my brain doesn't work that way for some reason. And I'm envious, and I tip my hat, non-existent hat, to anybody that, yeah. This one right here. She can do it.
I can just talk in my sleep, really.
And you
It's
do.
not much of a skill.
And you do. She does. She totally does.
Yes.
So when I got back from the tour, I waited about a week and a half, and I remember this quite vividly. I was really nervous to contact her because we've known each other for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, man, what if she doesn't want to do it? You know, what if she's just not about
Like,
this?
why not, bro?
So
Why not?
Yeah, I contacted her and said, hey, I want to do this project. I've got some ideas. Do you want to come over? And we made a day to come over, and for her to come over, she came, and
The rest is history,
yeah,
really.
pretty much.
Well, that's great. I mean, you know, with having your guys' backgrounds, you know, I'd say you guys mesh pretty well together. You're both creative. Like, you have a great voice, and you have that great knowledge of your craft. You know what I mean? So I'm so glad that you guys found each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about it is we learn from each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always nice when you have different personalities. Not anything so dramatic and drastic, but something that complements the other. Because to be honest with you, like, I didn't really have any musical experience when it came to instruments. So like, I didn't really get involved with the keys. I didn't play the guitar. The most experience I had was like the recorder, and everyone got that in elementary school. But since joining, like, I've really learned a lot in regards to like programming sounds and getting familiar with the synth, and you know, and playing around with it, and you know, helping with programming and all sorts of fun stuff. And you know, Casey hams it up. He's a robot on stage. So I mean, who would have thought he would have grown up to be the voice of Alpha Quadrant?
That is so great.
She's a really fast learner. She's a quick study, and she picks up things. My
brain moves as fast as my mouth.
Yes. And I was really surprised because when we started doing this, she took to it like a fish does to water, and she was able to wrap her head around working in Ableton, working around or on a synth rather, and a lot faster than I think, you know, a lot of people normally would. Everyone's different, but she's real fast. So that's been a huge help, and it's fun too.
You know.
And she's so modest.
I'm very, very modest.
But
I just like having fun.
Yeah, and we have a lot of that together. We work really well together. We're around each other a lot. I mean, honestly, I think we see more of each other than we do any other people for the most part.
Yeah, true. That's what happens when you have a passion that you work towards. You know, anybody in a band will tell you they spend more time with their bandmates than anybody else, just because you're trying to achieve something.
It's a very connective relationship, and you know, I look forward to seeing way more that you guys have in store. What are you looking forward to accomplishing the most moving forward?
World domination.
World domination,
yeah.
Duh, isn't that everyone's on their bucket list? No, probably meeting more people, whether that be fans, other bands. Like, we're very personable people, so.
Approachable.
Yeah, very approachable. We love talking to people and engaging at shows. Like, we don't go and hide. We're at the merch table talking to everybody and engaging. We like that interaction with people just because it makes what we do more rewarding. And it's not even about like the financial aspect of it. We're not going to talk to people who only buy a t-shirt, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we want to actually thank the people who paid for their ticket to come in and see the show, whether it was to see us or not. The fact that they still stood by the stage instead of like rolling in late, like, we still want to tell them thank you. That means a lot. Like, a lot of like the openers, like when you guys get there early and you actually like watch them, it means a lot. It actually helps build their confidence to see people engaging in their music because they put so much time and passion into it. It's nice to see that interaction with a fan or just with a friend. You know, I don't want to call them fans. Like it's still very, very weird for me to call people who like what we do fans. Like I would like to call them friends. I'd like to call them people that I get to know, you know. Like I just don't like not showing someone appreciation. I want to be able to kind of reciprocate and tell them thank you, because it really does mean the world to us. And we're here in the studio, you know, working hours upon hours on a song, and you know, you walk up to us and tell us like, hey man, I love that track, that got me through the day. Or like, you know, when I was going through this, like it really meant a lot to hear what you were saying. Like that's priceless. So that's something I want to be able to do more often. Like unfortunately with the virus going on, like we haven't been able to gig as often as we would like. We are connecting with people online, which is fantastic, but I think just getting that like person to person interaction again with people would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And just traveling too in general. Like we're on the East Coast, going to the West Coast, going up north, like whatever that takes. We just want to meet new people and learn new things.
And part of the life experience too. I think she summed it up pretty well, releasing new music, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. That would be fun.
Meeting new people, like that's the exciting part, because you know, sometimes depending on where you're going, you'll have an idea of who will be there, and you can kind of get an idea by looking at, you know, Facebook event pages of who's going to be there. But there's a lot of wild cards with shows, because there's still an unknown element of, you know, who's going to be there, who's not going to be there, or that kind of thing. So it's always cool, because invariably you're going to meet somebody new. And overall, I mean, that honestly, it's been a great experience every show. We've never really had any bad experiences.
And we'll spend so much time just talking to people after shows. We love it. Like I think that's one of the best parts about performing live, is all the people that you do get to meet. Like it really makes a difference. It's one thing to say like, oh hey, we're Alpha Quadrant, we're a really cool band, come check us out. Like that just sounds like spam online. It's a completely different experience when you actually get to speak with an artist in person, and we get to thank you for just supporting the scene, even if it wasn't for us, even if it was for the headliner or anybody. Just thank you for supporting the scene, because if you guys didn't show up, we wouldn't be able to do this. We'd just be like a blip on the internet, you know.
Well, it is very important, and it is a very good area, you know, after an event, like interacting with your fans, interacting with, what you were saying, your friends, you know, because you consider your fans your friends. That is very important, that person-to-person connection. And I think that a lot of the time, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, a lot of artists forgot that, because I do believe there are a good amount of artists that do still, you know, do that. They interact with their fans, they love their fans, you know, but then there are some artists who aren't as personable. So I think it's very important that people are personable and very approachable. And, you know, getting back to where we are, or where we were, and in this new normal that we're going to be entering into, I cannot wait to see what you guys have in store. I can't wait to see you guys come over to the West Coast and do some stuff over here, because it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, dude. We're so excited. The only time we ever get to the West Coast is when we go to the convention I mentioned earlier, the one that happens in January.
Yeah, NAMM.
But to gig out there would be so great, because we do have friends out there. We have a lot of artists that we've connected with, and you know, we'd love to just see that side of the coast. It's so funny, because Casey and I have talked about this multiple times, with synthwave being so heavily inspired by Miami and by South Beach. You would think that there would be a huge synthwave scene in Florida, but really there's not that much of a scene out here. And unfortunately, it's because Miami's just top 40. It's whatever's popular, sadly. The synthwave scene in Florida, I would say is heaviest actually in Orlando than it is in South Florida. So it's kind of funny, like when we connect with different artists, they're like, man, I'd love to do a show in Miami, the palm trees, the lights, and we're just like, we would love it if you would do one too, but like nobody's really
Yeah.
Nobody's chomping at the bit. It's so strange.
I think if your city doesn't have a scene, build a scene, make a scene. You know what I mean? Make it. Put that heart and soul into it. So, you know, hey, if you keep pushing, you keep like working at it, eventually you're going to chip away at that block and you're going to get something amazing. Hey, everybody out there, Miami, make it a hotspot. Get to the, you know, make events happen there because, hey, a lot of the synthwave stuff is very, very visual with the Miami aesthetic. So this is a thing for you guys out there. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Yes, that's true. We would absolutely love that. And you know what? Our family in Orlando has been so super great. Like, there's a lot of different artists that are based out of there that are just so super talented. We would just love it if we were able to give them that dream. I feel like a lot of synthwave artists have that dream to perform in Miami. So
Perturbator really had his heart set on doing a show in Miami, and the Florida promoter was just like, no, man, it just, there won't be enough of a crowd to make it worth it.
it's crazy.
And
You know what it is, actually? Florida just in general is very, very slow to like catch up with things. I don't know how to describe it. There's been so many people that are from New
Especially
York
don't
that have told us like, oh, that's been popular for the longest, and it's like brand new to South Florida. I think we're just too far south from the rest of the country. Like it's just delayed a little bit, maybe. I don't know what else it
we
is.
have it's so weird too because we have an abundance of Britpop nights, especially in Miami,
Yes,
and
so much.
a lot of like
So
post-punk,
much.
like old goth,
Mm.
goth rock and post-punk stuff, and it's all pretty much the same crowd, the same music, and people don't really seem to want to be open to branching out and trying other things. Also, another challenge is the lack of venues.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's everywhere. I feel like we're not the only one with that issue.
No, definitely not.
That's
But that is something that we do deal with. So it does make it difficult. I'd say West Palm Beach is a little bit more open to.
Yeah. You know what we could do? We could always just like put in a Depeche Mode song and then halfway through like cut the tape and be like, surprise, it's synthwave, and then like see how everyone reacts.
Well, hey, gather a collective of promoters and artists and, you know, push at it and get, you know, draw these people in. Everybody out there, it's your job to help make the scene grow in Miami. You know, build at it and make it work.
Yeah, we will definitely. We are very, very open to having communications with anybody, literally anyone. If you guys want to come down, or even if, oh my gosh, we love this more than anything. If you are an artist and you haven't performed live yet but want to, please reach out. Please reach out, because you have to learn and you have to start somewhere. We just need enough people to do it with us.
Yep.
Wise words there from Alpha Quadrant. What positive message would you give your fans out there?
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. I would say, honestly, and this might sound ignorant, but I would just tone down the news. Like, you don't need to have it on all the time. I'd say just check in every so often and just turn it off after that. Because I feel like it's much easier for people to market negativity and fear than it is for them to market something positive. So I know it's a hard time right now, and a lot of people are feeling anxious and they're feeling worried, and they might have even lost loved ones. If that's you, just know there is an end to this. You guys just have to be very, very, very cautious, very mindful, and just smart. You know what I mean? Don't do anything crazy. Essentially, what they're telling us to do is just social distancing, 6 feet, wash your hands, hand sanitizer if you have it, cover your face, wear gloves. Like, the one thing that I'm seeing, and I'm sure you can relate working retail as an essential worker, is a lot of people are just going out because they're bored.
Yep. Oh yeah.
There's a lot of things you guys could be doing online instead of shopping in an essential retailer, you know? And I feel like that can also go towards that positive message. Like, really, instead of just filling your time with filler, maybe choose to dream again. Maybe think about your passions and something that you've always felt like you've never had time to focus on, and start focusing on it, whether that be reading, working out, maybe starting a hobby. Maybe you are interested in synthwave and have always wanted to like write something or do something. Like, there's lots of different resources that you have online, whether it be different blogs, YouTube channels, lots of different things out there. I mean, I know I could speak on behalf of the Florida scene. A lot of us artists here are very, very approachable. You guys can reach out and start a conversation with any of us, and, you know, use the time productively. You never know what might happen. It's just sad when people forget what they used to dream about. You know, when we were kids, nobody ever said to themselves, oh, well, you know, I'm going to work at Best Buy. You know, like, you know, think about what you wanted to be and maybe explore that a little bit. And also spread that with others. Don't talk negative, just speak positive.
Also, be nice to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Stop stepping on others to make yourself feel better, or, you know, putting other people down and being selfish. You know, like she was saying, there's so much negative. Negative? Is that a word?
Negative.
I guess it is now.
Hashtag negative.
Okay. Yes, there's so much negative out there. It's not hard to be nice. In fact, it's super easy. Not only that, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part is you feel really good about it afterwards. Like it can be the smallest thing. But yeah, just be nice to each other. Lift each other up. Don't hold each other down.
Yeah.
Listen to those words, everyone. Very wise words from Casey and Kayla of Alpha Quadrant. I want to thank you guys so much for taking this time to sit down and have this conversation. Thank you to everybody tuning in. I wish you guys all the best, and we can't wait to see all of the great things that are going to come from you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Stay in contact with us.
Thank
We're
you.
all over the interwebs.
And if you guys like this video, be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next time.